He was the Group CFO of Malaysia's Axiata Group until December 2016. Axiata, as you know, is one of the largest telecommunications groups in Asia. He has served as the CFO of Celcom Axiata since mid-2009 and helped Celcom to receive an award for generating the highest return on investment capital within Malaysia. Prior to joining the Axiata Group, he spent 20 years working for Hewlett-Packard, which is a global giant in computer technology, 10 years of which spent in senior finance positions with Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore. The balance 10 years, he was responsible for sales and marketing for different business units in the Asia and Asia Pacific region. He was also the corporate vice president of business unit generating revenue of $1 billion for Southeast Asia and Taiwan. He currently serves as a senior consultant for Duff and Phelps, a global organization focused on valuation and business intelligence and investigations. He's one of the mentors. He does volunteer work, and he's one of the mentors to Endeavour Malaysia board advisory member of Center for Applied Data Sciences and a member of the MIA subcommittee. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome to talk about post-COVID survival to thriving, empirical evidence, a practical approach to surviving. Mr. V T Chari, Senior Advisor at Duff and Phelps, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Over to you, Mr. Chari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arjuna. Very nice. If I can share my screen quickly. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, I could, and I can hear you well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So I've got about 25 minutes, and I'll probably quickly run through. I've got a lot of slides. First of all, Ayubawan, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to come and share my thoughts with you. We are obviously living in a surreal and unprecedented times today. I've been working for the last 40 years, and I've not seen anything as devastating as this. Fundamentally, we see almost about 9.9 million people infected with COVID. It's spread into about 220 countries. The death toll is close to about 500,000, and out of that, about 125,000 is just in the US alone. Now, it is not just the COVID-19, it is also accentuated by the oil price coming down substantially and a huge amount of feud that's happening, or a trade war that's happening between US and China. None of it is helping the economy as a whole. Now, every country is offering stimulus packages at close to $3-4 trillion. It's no more $1 million or $1 billion. It's all in $1 trillion. It's 1 followed by 12 zeros. And ADB assessments to the economic loss is close to about $8.8 trillion. Now the question is this: that when we recover, is it going to be a V curve or a U curve or a L curve or a W curve? And depending on the economy that you talk to, you get different answers. But let's probably explore some of those today. Again, we don't have an absolutely perfect answer, but we can just give you some empirical evidence. Now, if I look at this, there are two things that I've been asked to talk about. One is, are there any empirical evidences? So can we go and share that piece? The second piece is, how do I move from just a survival for the next 6 months, 8 months to thriving mode? And is there a playbook that we can introduce? And those are the two topics that I'm going to cover. And I've got a number of slides, but I'll quickly do that as fast as possible. Now, the impact of the business is very clear, that there are certain industries which have been very severely impacted. And I was presenting this paper in Thailand. The tourism business is impacted a lot, leisure business, aviation, maritime. 96% of the aircrafts for Singapore Airlines is sitting on the tarmac. They're not flying. It's impacting aviation. I was a consultant for Malaysian airports for a while. And today you've got only 5% of the normal traffic that's coming into. So a lot of industries are getting impacted, but a number of industries are also getting the benefit. Medical supplies, the PPE, gloves, and all the stuff. E-commerce is increased a lot. So food processing, retail, as Mr. Arjuna said, that food is important, and that particular business is also doing well. So it's a mixed bag in a way, that some of them are doing well, some of them are not doing as well. And I look at the impact to the business, and you look at all the names. Like you have a few companies which have declared bankruptcy. Hertz, I was very surprised. And Hertz had declared. Thai Airways has done it. JCPenney has declared bankruptcy. But even some big names like IBM, they are letting go people to sort of manage the situation. Now, what surprises to me is someone who's been working for the last 40 odd years. IBM has been in existence for about 100 years. And, a 3-month embargo is impacting the world as much, or the IBM world as much. And so the resilience is going to be important. And what did they miss for them to go and let go so many people for a short span of 3 months, where there's a lockdown and there's a pandemic and they go through this. Now let's look at some of the empirical evidence. Now you saw the pandemic and it's got its impact. The empirical evidence, this is an interesting chart that I picked up from SoftBank. When they announced the results, they said that in 1929 there was a Great Depression. In about 3-4 years time, the stock prices came down by 90%. And it took about 25 years for them to recover, 25 years. So this is between 1929 and 1954, which is soon before I was born. And the question is, are we also going to have a similar 25-year recovery period as we're going through this crisis? Now, the difference, one of the biggest difference between what happened then and now is this, that in 1929, depression was led, the recovery was led by new industries. It is automobile, electronic products, oil, manufacturing, electricity, food processing. And these are all clear brick and mortar companies. You need to spend a fair amount of time developing the ecosystem, developing the manufacturing plant, logistics, and then you're going to need to produce, and obviously it's taking such a long time. So whereas today, the recovery from COVID-19 will be led by technology, right? Online meeting. And we look at what we're doing today, like for the first time, you're having a very effective meeting where we're bringing in as many people as possible, having this conversation. It's as though you're physically present, not as good, but it's almost 98% of where it should be. Food delivery, online education, we're going to talk about that later. It's amazing that some of the students are sitting at home and getting educated. And I was presenting a few papers to the universities too. And it's, 400 people, 500 people logging on to, and they can all listen to a conversation. Online medical care, online shopping. So there is a huge difference between what happened in 1929 to what's happening today. So to the extent the recovery is bound to be faster, with certain tweaks, which we'll talk about later. Now, the second thing is this, that the deja vu is around the subprime mortgage crisis that happened in 2006. If I look at the history, it is very similar. Fed didn't do adequately, recession began, and you had Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac succumb to, and subsequently the stock market crashed, and everybody paid a huge amount of money for bailing out and all that stuff. So if I look at this from a financial crisis to recovery, it's by and large similar. Now, Lehman Brothers, again, this is the same story as I said earlier. Worst economic crisis between 2007 and 2009. It wiped off $8 trillion, very similar to what's happening today. Highest unemployment rate at 10%. Now it's even more. And ultimately, both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have returned the bailout money, which means that the bailout has in a way worked and they've given back money. Now, I'm just moving on to the third topic of rapidly changing world. The world is definitely changing. There's no questions at all, and I'll give you a few examples of where the world is changing. But you can see here, suddenly the internet connectivity is amazing across the globe. You've got about 4.39 billion people, and it is increasing. And now, adapting to technology is also rapidly happening. Suddenly entertainment is all done through a net, delivery of food, TikTok, restaurant delivery, grocery delivery. It's all happening through digital adoption. Food shopping, look at the Amazon.com. It's the largest company in the world with market capitalization of close to more than $1 trillion. Market capitalization of more than $1 trillion. It's amazing, actually. Communication, video chat. Zoom was no one at about 4 or 5 months back, and from there to where they are today, it's amazing in terms of the market capitalization and the value that has happened. Wellness and medicine is also another important thing that's happening. Now, schools, education, everything is changing, and people are adapting to new technologies much faster. Now, this is just a quick run through of what's happened in 2010 versus 2020. If I look at the right-hand side, the valuations are all led by large companies, $1 trillion companies are all click and mortar companies, not brick and mortar companies. They're all click and mortar companies and software driven, AI driven, blockchain driven. So these are all click and mortar companies which are growing much faster in terms of valuation vis-a-vis the old days where brick and mortar companies, ExxonMobil was the biggest, Citibank was big and all that stuff. And that's moving away. And now the focus is more on the click and mortar companies. Now, very quickly on this chart, it's crowded. The question, $1 million question that we have is, what's going to happen to us in future? Is retail business going to stay? Will Target be there? Will Carrefour be there? What's going to happen to 7-Eleven? Will everybody go and order only on online and the brick and mortar companies are not going to exist? That's a question. Similarly for hospitality, what's going to happen to Ritz-Carlton? What's going to happen to Hilton? Will we ever go there? Or are we all going to do this online and we're not going to do any of it? Airports, airlines, what's going to happen to all of them? And the hailing services, like we are so used to Uber and Grab and all that stuff. And today and tomorrow, are we going to do this? Education, we spoke about it. What's going to happen to sports tomorrow? Will we ever go and attend a big cricket match in a stadium because of the fear of COVID or whatever? There may not be there could be another COVID tomorrow for that matter. So what's going to happen? If I extend this like into a board meeting, will we ever attend weddings, for example? So all these questions are coming up, and it's interesting to find an answer. Will we ever shake hands? So there are two camps to this question. One is, there won't be much of a change. We're all social animals. We'll continue to do what we've been doing. Or there's another camp which says that, look, everything will change. Everything will change. The doomsday will say that everything will change. If you're a brick and mortar company, you're going to die and you're not going to exist at all. And the click and mortar companies are going to take over. So it's a dichotomy between the two. And probably let's try to see if we can get some answer between the two. Right now, so I've given you a bit of background around the empirical evidences. There are three empirical evidences that we spoke about. Rapidly changing digital world, which is going to help us in terms of recovery much faster. And the short term, there will be pain. This is one of the reasons why we created this leadership playbook. And there are 6 blocks to it, and each block will probably take an hour each. And since we don't have time, I'm not going to run through each one of them. But fundamentally, what this says is this, that leadership is going to be a very important piece of what you do. It may sound a little cliche, but leadership is important. In times of crisis, people depend on leaders to provide clarity and hope. Fear can be contagious, and this can lead to lower productivity, lower employee engagement, and all that stuff. So you play a significant role as leaders in the industry. Embrace an optimistic culture, not positive culture, but an optimistic culture to say, yep, I have all these problems, but I'll recover it and move forward. Second block is around bring back your revenue. Now, it's the greatest example would be 9/11. When 9/11 happened, everybody stopped flying. But what happened was this, that both airports and airlines came back and said, look, I'm going to do a bunch of things. Like I'm going to test, security check will be a lot more stricter. Remove your belt, remove your pant, remove your jacket. You can't carry water, all kinds of, remove your shoes. They created a fair amount of pain, but we were okay to go through that pain because we know that it's providing us additional security. And when 100 people went, they came out successfully. It became 1,000, 1,000 became 10,000, 10,000 became 1,000,000, and back to square A. And probably some of those stuff, and I've got again a bunch of examples of what others are doing. Airlines are today using, which is the most impacted industry, are using UV to clean up the plane when it lands. And so whatever that's being used in medicine is hospitals are being used in an aircraft. So sit in a place and start thinking through your bringing back your customer strategy in a way. The third one is digital transformation. We just quickly talked about that. I want to spend a bit of a time, maybe 5 to 8 minutes there. And scenario planning. Scenario planning is not generally done only for banks. And now I'm saying that every single company for the next 6 to 8 months, we will have to continuously do weekly, do a stress test to see what's your realistic case, an optimistic case, pessimistic case, and get an answer to it. And fourthly, proactively engage with your customers, employees, because they may not exist. Your supplier may not exist. Your customer may not exist. 80% of the business is coming from one of your customers. If he doesn't exist, you have trouble. So proactively engage with your employees, your customers, and supply chain. And lastly, on a short-term basis, conserve cash, conserve cash, conserve cash. Cash is going to be king. And there are lots of smart things that you can do. Like there was one case where there was an asset which was sitting there in the company which we acquired 3 years back for a particular customer. The customer just walked away, and we said, okay, let's go and sell this asset and make money. And so we lost a little bit of money. It doesn't matter at all, but at least the cash came in. Similarly, can I convert CAPEX into OPEX? Multiple options are there for block number 6 also. So given the paucity of time, I'll probably just focus on 2 and quickly run through. Again, there are a number of beautiful slides, but paucity of time, I think I'll quickly touch on some of the key points. Now, digital transformation before or after is important, but with COVID-19 coming and hitting you, it has to be accelerated substantially. We've been talking about digitization, digital transformation for at least the last 5 to 6 years, but time for us to go and execute it. Otherwise, we will get executed also. One is business model, and we need to understand what is meant by platform business. How do I connect myself to my customers easily, and how can I enhance customer experience? So important, right? Now, I get down from an Uber taxi and I close the window, a door, and within half a second, I get an invoice which says, when did I start, where did I get down, all that information, plus you've got to pay me 80 ringgit or whatever it is. I forwarded my secretary, my work is done. Now, have you ever called a call center or WhatsApp to say, hey, look, I was trying to send this picture to Mr. Arjuna, it didn't reach, can you help me? It doesn't happen. Like it has never failed in the last so many years. And it's that seamless customer experience is also going to be important moving forward. Radically simplify the business, which is the second triangle. And third one is digitization. For everything, underneath everything, you need to embrace technology. It's important. And similarly, create a data-driven culture. And a country like Sri Lanka, and I was fortunate enough to be in the board of Dialogue for about literally 4 years. And there are so many bright people, especially mathematically trained, engineering trained, statistically trained. And again, you guys can do a wonderful job helping the world at large in terms of analytics. Now, in terms of business model, so the first triangle was about business model. This company was, this is a very low end of the business, which is providing security guards. So essentially, instead of having 40 security guards per building, they said that, look, I'm going to provide you an IPV camera and I'm going to collect all the data points for 10 buildings. And there is a video analytics engine which is running. The minute there is an intruder, I will know. And instead of having 400 guards, I'll have 20 guards who are young, energetic, ready to pound. And this is a great business to be in. This is a change of business model from being a physical brick and mortar company to a click and mortar company. This is amazing. Same thing with Bobby Parker. If you have time, just go Google this place. It's $1 billion company today. They've completely changed customer experience. Normally selling your glasses and they change the customer experience. I would want you to sort of go look at it. And retail car distribution, again, a lot of people are really worried that, tomorrow Audi could come and sell their cars in Lazada. Audi or Mercedes-Benz could be selling their cars in Amazon.com. So what's going to happen to all our retail outlets, swanky showrooms that we have? So need to think about it. Now, here are a few examples. If you see the business model as platform as a service, product as a service, directly connecting to customers. So it's amazing the kind of stuff that even large companies are doing in terms of, so we need to understand what is meant by brick and mortar, what is meant by click and mortar, and how do I use the platform business to drive incremental business, enhance customer satisfaction, and revenue is going to be as important. Now, clearly, if once you have a platform, this is what is going to happen. Marriott, 88 years, it took 88 years for them to build 697,000 rooms within 80 countries. And today, Airbnb was able to do, this is pre-COVID days. They were in 192 countries in 4 years' time with similar number of rooms. And that's the power of digital. And if you don't embrace digital, we could be in trouble. And now, the second triangle was about radically simplifying the business. And again, there are a number of examples. We can go on hours talking about radically simplifying, like number of SKUs for portfolio, procurement simplification, manufacturing simplification, packaging simplification, sales and marketing simplification. Uber, again, like how simple they are. The days of checking the checker is all kind of gone. The machine will take over to a great extent and they give you an answer. Apple Care is very simple. If you have a problem with Apple Care, Apple, you just go and say that, look, I've got a problem with your speaker. They're not going to check you. The only thing that they check is it within warranty? They give you a new unit and you go away. It's not as though they've got about 10 people checking whether what you say is right or wrong. They don't have 5 machines behind to check whether what you said is right or wrong. It's simple, 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 radically simplified business. The third one is around digitization, the third block that I talked about. This is an airport. So the one thing is this, that here I am running an airport and I am going to London to see my son, let's say, right? And I am sitting in a plane. When DHL sends me a parcel from the US to Malaysia, I can track minute by minute. And here I am sitting in a plane. I don't even know whether the baggage is coming in my plane or not. And that's bad digitization. So can I go and create that piece? Now, if I look at the airports, for example, there are 18 or 19 points where you can go do digitization, which will enhance customer satisfaction. Their experience will be very different, pretty interesting in terms of what can be done. And now, same thing with smart cities. There's a bridge, a Penang bridge, which is so long in Malaysia. And if I have an IoT device in each one of those areas, instead of sending people to go and check whether it's right or wrong, the IoT device will ping you to say that, yeah, something is wrong with this. Can you go do it? So amazing amount of examples around what we can do with respect to smart city solutions. Now, most unsexy business. I want you to listen to this conversation, this video, if you don't mind. Just 1 minute, maybe. Okay, so this is about connected cow. When you have time, just go to Google and find out. Fundamentally, cows carry a Fitbit-like equipment in their leg, and you use it to see whether they are productive or otherwise. So even for most unsexy business, devices are being used to enhance productivity.
Excuse me, Mr. Chari, we will time is up for the presentation. We'll take some questions now, right?
Okay, can. Now, if you can just give me 2 minutes, I will probably summarize. I've got a number of examples, but just.
So let me, I think best thing Mr. Chari is to do is to let me ask a fundamental question and you can answer that summarizing. Take 5 minutes. Okay, here's the question. There were 5 questions being asked and all of them points to one thing. To apply any strategy, one has to have some definite. The whole issue with the COVID-19 is that it is not sure whether we are done or there has to be a second wave or a third wave or a fourth wave. Combined with that, you are suggesting that we should go for digital transformation. So your uncertainty is there, your digital transformation is there. How all this will play in a country like Sri Lanka or Malaysia or any other country in Asia?
Right. Now, today we are in a position to live by and large very similar. First and foremost is you will get a vaccine sooner or later. Like there is certain uncertainty, and there's no guarantee that there may not be another COVID 22, 21, or whatever it is. So we are so used to it as individuals. We are adaptable, we are resilient, we are innovative, we are social animals, and we will come out of this. And that's one of the reasons why we had this empirical evidence. Now, the faster we can recover, not by using the brick and mortar principles, but by using the click and mortar principle. And this is one of the reasons why I showed you an empirical evidence from a SoftBank presentation, which said clearly that today the recovery will be led by technology. And so as long as we have the right kind of technology, we should be in a position to recover. I'll tell you one example, so this is
Mr. Chari, may I interrupt? Some of your slides are overcrowding the screen, so people are saying that they are not very clear. So let me ask one last question. You have 1 minute more.
Yeah.
The uncertainty that we find that today, is it different from any other uncertainty in situations in business world in the past? Is there a difference?
Yes, there are differences, but fundamentally there are differences. One is one is a financial crisis, one is a medical crisis. Yeah, there are differences. However, the fundamental remains the same, that there is a financial crisis, and how is the business community is going to come out of it? How is the government going to help to bring them out of this? The faster we bring it down, the better it is. And so, yes, there are differences, but fundamentally it is by and large the same in terms of recovery period. Whether I compare this with 9/11, whether I compare this with the 1929 crisis or the subprime crisis that you had in the US. They're all very similar, and that's one of the reasons why I shared them. $8 trillion. Fundamentally, everybody is giving subsidies, stimulation packages. They're all by and large the same. But what the one advantage today is the technology. You have so much of technology that's available that can help you to move from one to the other much faster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chari, for your lovely presentation. Right, there were a lot of details actually. So some of the audiences couldn't see them properly because of the slides were crowded in the screen. But nevertheless, your speech was eloquent and very clear. So thank you very much for participating with us in the first speaker of the day. Thank you very much, Mr. Chari. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move on to the second presentation. Let me give you an introduction to that. This presentation is from one of the foremost policymakers in our national education. Sri Lanka's national education is a foremost policymaker. I welcome him because I have worked with